expecting a guy to make one of the most miraculous comebacks from an Achilles of all time. And I don't just think you should expect that. And it's not that I'm anti-Durant. I love KD. I love watching him play. And I love his attitude. I love the fact that we've seen him go from what seemed to me from afar to be an insecure kid, and most kids are insecure, right, to a confident adult, who's not so thin-skinned and maybe doesn't have the same kind of rabbit ears he used to and is more, seems to me, to be more kind of satisfied with who he is and what he's done and where he's going. So all that's good. I root for him. But Stephen A., if I just expect him to get to the finals coming off an Achilles, even with Kyrie, because Kyrie has also been a chemistry destroyer, as great a player as he is, Dinwiddie and LeVert and these guys, that's kind of like downing them if they get to the conference finals. And I think that's as much as you can expect. In other words, I'm not going to call this season a failure. First year back from a catastrophic injury, first year head coach, guys who've never really played together if they get to the conference finals. Like the Bucks have been playing together for a long time, and they added Drew Holiday, which is exactly what they needed. You have teams in the conference like Miami, like Philadelphia, who have more continuity and aren't coming off catastrophic injury to their best player. Just like with the Lakers, had they not won the whole thing, had they just gotten to the Western Conference Finals, I wouldn't have said this is a failure because I would have picked them probably to win this year. To me, next year is the Nets' year. If they do it this year, that's ahead of schedule.
I'm not expecting them to win the chip this year, but I expect them if Kevin Durant is at least 80%, because I think he's that lethal, he's that phenomenal. I think better than 80%, they should be able to go to the finals. But it's not just because of Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant is sensational. We know what he brings to the table, and I don't think that he needs to be extremely athletic and 100% himself. To do the 6'11 with a 7'6 wingspan and can pull up from 30. I think he'll be fine. He's going to easily average 25 a game. If that's what he wants to do. Kyrie Irving had a shoulder injury, didn't have a leg injury. I expect him to be nothing short but spectacular. He's a showstopper. We know what he brings to the table. But here's the interesting element, and this is why I think that people don't need to sleep on the Nets in terms of getting to the finals. I think they need to make the move for James Harden to win it all, but I don't think they need to make that move to get to the finals because I don't view the Eastern Conference the way that I view the West. When I look at the Eastern Conference, I'm thinking about a 26-year-old Spencer Dinwiddie that averaged 20 a game. I'm thinking about a Joe Harris who just got his new deal that shot 42+% from three-point range. I'm thinking about a Karis LeVert who averaged 18 points a game, and we know he could ball, especially what we saw him do, particularly in that game against Portland that they lost in the closeout game in those 8-game bubbles, those 8 games in a bubble where they were going up against Damian Lillard and those boys. These brothers can play, and when I look at what they bring to the table and how they can play, I don't underestimate nor do I sleep on what they bring to the table. I think that combined with veteran leadership in that locker room to help Kevin Durant, I definitely think that when you look at it and it comes down to this, they got a superstar in Kevin Durant, who at 80%, by the way, is still a superstar. They got a showstopper in Kyrie Irving, and they got a bunch of supplementary parts that ain't average. These brothers, Karis LeVert, Spencer Dinwiddie, can play. Joe Harris can really, really shoot. Jared Allen's only 21 years of age, averaged 11 and 9. I'm looking at them and I'm saying, yo, man, I can't sleep on these brothers. The fact of the matter is when I look at the Eastern Conference, the question is, who do you have that can really neutralize or nullify what Kevin Durant can bring to the table? It still ain't the Greek Freak come playoff time because he don't have that kind of perimeter game to be that formidable. He'll get numbers, but when you really, really need guys to do some things, I don't think he's that guy. And as much as I love Drew Holiday and as an elite of a defender as he is and as great of a two-way player as he is, I think the Nets have enough weapons where that wouldn't be enough. If Kevin Durant is plus 80%, I believe the Brooklyn Nets should be in the finals.
Because he and the Hornets agreed to a 4-year, $120 million deal over the weekend, guys. A lot of folks question Hayward opting out of his $34 million option with the Celtics for next season, but clearly it was for a reason. It worked out for him. Zach, what's your assessment of Charlotte's decision to gamble on Hayward here?
All right, let me defend the Charlotte Hornets a little bit. Do I think this is a good contract? Not really. Do I think it'll be like a trade asset in a couple of years? No. But it's not like the Celtics and the Pacers in a sign and trade were offering $80 million or $90 million. It was something over $100 million. So it's not like the difference was that big. And look, if you want free agents to come to Charlotte, this is what you have to do. Just like if you want free agents to come to any kind of small market, you have to overpay them. And all you want to say is, well, they should just keep tanking and tanking and tanking. Well, that's just not a reality for a lot of these teams. It's not a reality for these small market teams, even in a year when you can't sell tickets. And also, the Hornets, as things stood before, could have had like $50, $60 million in cap space this coming offseason when like 2/3 of the league is going to have a lot of cap space. What are you buying with that cap space that's better than Gordon Hayward? Gordon Hayward, if he stays healthy, is still a really, really good player. So no, I don't think it's a great contract. And yeah, everyone wants to clown the Hornets for going all in for the 8th seed like they always do. I just don't think it's as bad of a deal as people are making it out to be. And I think Gordon Hayward is still a damn good player.
Well, Zach, I have to disagree with you. Look, I'm all in for players getting their bread and getting their lettuce, but for the Hornets, this was a bad deal. And look, we're coming up on Thanksgiving, and Michael Jordan is already thinking about Christmas because if he's going to be this giving, I might have to retire from ESPN and go get back in shape because if he's going to be giving out millions of dollars, I can go out there and go set picks and rebound if he's just in the giving mood. Look, this type of signing is not good. And I understand it's hard to land free agents in a small market, but when you go out there and give $120 million to a guy that's over 30, that's getting up in age, to land a Gordon Hayward, who's, to me, not a number one option guy, it could set your organization back in the future. And I just think with an organization like the Hornets, you did well by drafting LaMelo Ball. You continue to draft young guys and develop young guys and have a great player development, not go out there and spend $120 million on an aging Gordon Hayward who haven't really been healthy.
His health is one of the big flags, right? Of course, the injury when he first got to Boston was a freak injury, but he's had many injuries since then, missed a chunk of time in the bubble. I do always want to compare it, though. If you're spending money on Gordon and people say, you shouldn't be doing that, it's way overpaying him, well, what else would you be spending that money on? And to Zach's point, their options of what else to spend that money on are not the same as some other teams around the league. So we'll just have to watch and see if he becomes a worthwhile signing for them, and especially his health over the coming years. I do want to switch gears, guys, quickly, though, because a delegation of NBA players, several officials from the Players Association, were at the Vatican today, for a private audience with Pope Francis to discuss their work on social justice issues. The delegation included Kyle Korver and Sterling Brown from the Bucks, Jonathan Isaac of the Orlando Magic, Anthony Tolliver, the Union Secretary-Treasurer, Marco Bellinelli, and Michelle Roberts, Executive Director of the Players Union. Zach, this was your story this morning. What else can you tell us about how this came about and the discussions they had?
An intermediary for the Pope. The Pope, it feels weird to say the Pope and not Contavious Caldwell Pope, but they reached out to the union and said, hey, we really admire what these players have done for social justice and racial inequality. I'd like to have a visit with them, or the Pope would. And look, I don't know what you guys believe. It doesn't matter what I believe. When the Pope summons you, you apparently go to the Pope because everything he says is important for like 1 billion people on planet Earth. So for the players to get a stage like this and an audience like this, no matter what you believe, is kind of objectively a big deal.
It's the Lakers, Rachel. Rob Pelinka went out there in free agency, and he did his thing. He went out there and got free agents like the Lakers lost and didn't win the championship. When you look at him getting Dennis Schroeder, Montrezl Harrell, who we stole from the Clippers, who was the 6th man of the year, and then you go out there and get Wes Matthews for $3.6, one of the best two-way players in the game today. Not the best, but one of the best. And then you go and land Marc Gasol, a veteran big. That was crucial.
Yeah, the answer has to be, both these teams are awesome. They're my favorites to go 1 and 2 in the West. But look, the Lakers just won a championship and they got better. So the answer has to be Lakers. Dennis Schroeder has an ingredient they just didn't have last year. A water bug point guard who can create his own shot. I think he'll do a great job running pick and roll with LeBron and AD. And Marc Gasol is a perfect fit with their starting 5 if they decide to start him. Same level of interior defense as Dwight and JaVale, maybe even a little better. except he can shoot threes and space the floor for Anthony Davis. So all of a sudden when Anthony Davis is posting up, the lane is clear. Anthony Davis is pick and roll, diving to the rim. The lane is clear. And oh, by the way, if you decide to put your center on Anthony Davis and try to hide your power forward on Marc Gasol, he can take that guy down to the weight room. You throw in Montrezl Harrell, maybe keep him in a six-man, kind of roll off the bench. I think the Lakers had an amazing offseason. Clippers are doing great, but when you win the championship, you get the benefit of the doubt.
It really does seem like a long time ago, guys, right? That the narrative out there was, gee, I don't know if players want to play with LeBron. Kyrie left. Kevin Durant didn't want to come. Kawhi Leonard didn't want to come to Lakers and play with him. Guess what? Guys seem to be wanting to play on that Lakers team. And such an interesting thing happened with the Lakers last year, and I wanted to ask you guys about it because last summer, I said once they built that roster, gee, I'm worried about their perimeter defense. I was very concerned about where that was going to come from. And if you look at the numbers of where this Lakers roster, their core players were the previous season, look at their defensive numbers from last season, you can see where that concern was. But then look at this past season. Every single guy got better. I mean, much better. And I would say this is in some ways the Frank Vogel effect. This is in some ways LeBron getting serious on defense the way he hadn't in the previous few years. But it has sort of made me wonder, how do we account for this thing when looking at rosters to say, some of these guys might be so much better consistently 1 through 8 there than they were the previous season. Zach, when you see those numbers, what do you do when you evaluate rosters?
Well, a lot of those numbers, those are team defense or individual defensive ratings. Those are really heavily dependent on your team context. So when you add in Anthony Davis and you add in engaged LeBron James and you retool the team around them, everybody's defensive numbers are going to get better. So I don't put a huge amount of stock into those numbers. I just think the Lakers got better talent, including a defensive player of the year level player in Anthony Davis, a coach who's going to stress defense from day one. And they came out with the mindset of, we're building our team defense and out. And when you do all those things together, yeah, everybody's numbers are going to improve. I don't think, and everyone bought in. Guys who maybe hadn't bought in as much in the past bought in. So that's what happens, and I do think they can carry that over into this season. And as you pointed out, Rachel, their perimeter depth, just as good now as it was when they won in the bubble, maybe even better.
And Zach, you hit a great point by bringing up Frank Vogel. When you look at Coach Vogel, especially when he was with the Pacers, they were always at the top defensively. So Frank Vogel brings that defensive mindset. And once he got LeBron James and Anthony Davis to buy in, then it's a ripple effect. Now you see Caldwell Pope, he's buying in on the defensive end. And then you seen Dwight Howard and JaVale McGee last year, the way that they had the defensive impact. But now you add Dennis Schroeder, who's a guy that could pick up 94 feet, who's feisty on the defensive end, who gets you extra possession, along with a guy like Montrezl Harrell. Look, we praise Montrezl Harrell about his offensive package and his 19 points a game, but he's great at taking charges. He's an underrated shot blocker. And then we all know locked in Marc Gasol, what he brings to the table, along with Wesley Matthews.